So something that has metabolite interaction with glucocorticoid receptors like trenbolone or anavar, which are potent GR antagonists, will ultimately prevent more muscle protein breakdown, which will then net you, like compared to muscle protein synthesis, you net a greater amount of overall muscle growth than you would otherwise. What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we are going to be doing another product breakdown. So oftentimes I'll just release these products and, usually I do like an hour deep dive into the products, but sometimes I feel like you guys would rather potentially just have entertaining content. So I just skip them over and then I'll get a bunch of messages being like, Derek, can you break down this product? So there's been enough demand that, like, obviously it helps the marketing for me to have a video to go along with it, and enough people have been demanding for this product, so I'm gonna break it down for you guys. As far as if you guys want me to do breakdowns for all of them, I guess like just let me know in the future and I'll do them. Like, to be honest, some of them I've just been like releasing for the Gorilla Mind products and not really making corresponding videos. But if you want me to do them for all of them, then like I can. I did that for the like the glycerol one, I didn't do one for, and then a bunch of people were asking me for it and then made the video. Raoul sign, same thing. Recently did the turkesterone one. And then anyway, here we are. So cortisol blocker. So why would you use a cortisol blocker? Is it necessary? No. However, one thing that is problematic, and it's like, this is something that is not really necessary if you actually had a good lifestyle and diet. The problem is in this world, unfortunately, the majority of people are addicted to something called stimulants. Most people are addicted to caffeine specifically, and they are essentially artificially shoving their body into a state of heightened sympathetic drive on a daily basis. So there's basically two states your body can be in. It can be in sympathetic or parasympathetic. One is like fight or flight, like, fucking get ready to like run from a wild animal or like hunt prey or whatever in like ancestrally, that's what it would be for. But in current day, it's more so just like you're essentially just like redlining your body and like focusing all on something that is not about recovery or rest or anything that is useful to overall rejuvenation. It is literally like flooding your body with catecholamines to try and just like mentally fucking blast through some shit. And then the other side, there's parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. This is where you would be calm, cool, collected. You would be able to get to sleep easier in this state. You would be digesting your food. You would be like ideally, whereas the problem with nowadays is that a lot of people are artificially keeping themselves in this state with the heightened sympathetic drive on a daily basis, which prevents them from getting into this state when they need to actually get to sleep in a timely manner, stay asleep, not be stressed out on a daily basis, which is going to be detrimental to their health long term, and a myriad of other things that is problematic when you don't actually let yourself get into a proper state of relaxation, and especially when it's artificially exacerbated with excessive stimulant use. And this is where people are starting to tax their adrenals to a ridiculous amount, having excessive cortisol production, and basically self-inducing this state of redlining themselves to a point that is unhealthy, causing unnecessary amounts of inflammation in the body, causing insulin resistance, causing shitty sleep, causing lack of muscle growth because they are impeding their body's ability to actually repair and recover. So some of this is like the cortisol thing. Glucocorticoids in general, it's kind of like they're necessary. A lot of people will say, oh, cortisol, it's so bad, you gain fat, like cortisol is the worst thing ever. It's like, no, you actually need a good cortisol response to wake up in the morning, to get your ass out of bed, to get motivated and get like fucking shit done. It's like later in the day, and having that regulated like activity of glucocorticoids that is not excessive and is not artificially maintained on a long-term basis when it would otherwise need to like peter out over the day. Like when you wake up, you should have a strong cortisol response. This is what is going to get you up in the morning. However, it should not be excessively so, and you shouldn't be redlined all fucking day, especially going into the nighttime when you actually need to calm down and get into parasympathetic, rest and digest, go to sleep, stay the fuck asleep mode, which a lot of people are impairing themselves from doing so. So this is where a cortisol blocker is essentially a band-aid, and that's not necessarily the best way to go about it. The best way to go about it is to not excessively bombard yourselves with stimulants, to not get shitty sleep, to actually follow your circadian rhythm, get exposure to light in the morning, block out blue light at nighttime, all of the proper, like lifestyle practices that would otherwise be conducive to a optimal, glucocorticoid regulation in your body. But people just can't do that. Like, a lot of people just, no matter what, they're still going to do the things they do. And that's totally understandable. And this is where something like a cortisol blocking supplement or something that would otherwise enhance anti-anxiety / stress comes into play, that can at least help you get to that state that you need to be a bit easier than you would otherwise from this artificially induced red line state you've put yourself in perpetually through your, lifestyle choices. So again, this is not like the answer. This is more something to aid you in the lifestyle you've induced upon yourself, which is like, it sounds bad, but it's like most people have, unfortunately, like I don't know, just the way the world works, most people are in this, overabundantly in this red line state the majority of the day. High amounts of stress, high amounts of just overall like needing to chill out. Not a lot of people have the strong control of their body to actually get into these states they need to. They're constantly in a perpetual state of sympathetic drive, essentially, and it is not healthy. So this is where something that, like I said, helps you get into this rest and digest state easier is going to be beneficial. So again, there are lifestyle things you should be doing to fix this, but this is something that will help significantly in terms of getting you to that anti-anxiety, anti-stress, calm down, actually be able to get into a state of muscle recovery, healing, sleep without, sitting in your bed staring at the wall for a fucking hour because you're too stressed out to go to bed. That kind of stuff, this will help significantly, as well as just anti-anxiety in general. So anyways, breaking down the formula. This is one of the most potent formulas I have come out with for Gorilla Mind. I have, it's extremely expensive to the point where I question if I will even make this product again. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to reorder it, just because it is a very niche product. But even when I put out something that's niche and is not going to be high demand, I want to put out the best stuff. And this was so expensive that I'm like baffled I even went out of my way to make this product, because I could have otherwise just made like another flavor of my pre-workout or something and had it sell 10 times more than this. So, but anyways, if I put out something, it's going to be potent and it's going to work. So the first ingredient is Emodin, which is standardized to 95%, and there is 500 milligrams per 2 capsules. There's 120 capsules in this product. And so there's 60 servings if you use the 2 capsule dose. The second ingredient is ashwagandha extract at 250 milligrams, standardized to 5% with analyzed glycosides. The third ingredient is phosphatidylserine at 150 milligrams. The fourth ingredient is Panax ginseng extract, standardized to 5%. That's 125 milligrams. The fifth ingredient is ginkgo extract, so Ginkgo Biloba, at a 50-to-1 standardized extract at 100 milligrams. And then L-Theanine is the next ingredient at 100 milligrams. And the last ingredient is bioperine, which is the trademarked black pepper fruit extract, standardized to 95% piperine. So this formula, Emodin, is the most expensive ingredient in this product by far. And I'm sure you've already heard before about how like corticosteroids, like prednisone, dexamethasone, all these things can cause muscle loss, as well as like when they're being used for what they're being deployed for. One of the side effects could be essentially like muscle and bone wasting. And the reason being is these are very catabolic hormones. Well, they are agonists of the same receptor that would otherwise be agonized via cortisol. So when you have the glucocorticoid receptor, this has like I said, cortisol is not the devil. It's something that is necessary just at a physiologic amount that is reasonable. But when you get into this like excessive redlining territory and you're artificially like cranking your body longer than it should be, you get into this like excessive slamming of the glucocorticoid receptors, which can lead to muscle protein breakdown. And this is where, like exogenous anabolic steroids actually come into play, where they actually, one of their most potent effects through muscle building and performance is antagonism to the glucocorticoid receptors. And this is where the breakdown of proteins is inhibited, which nets out a more increased muscle size and strength outcome than would otherwise be achieved by something that is just a potent, like a pure AR agonist. So something that has metabolite interaction with glucocorticoid receptors like trenbolone or anavar, which are potent GR antagonists, will ultimately prevent more muscle protein breakdown, which will then net you, like compared to muscle protein synthesis, you net a greater amount of overall muscle growth than you would otherwise. That's like one of the main ways by which anabolic steroids work. Now in a natural, the same thing is sort of the case, especially guys who are redlining themselves and are just unnecessarily dipping into body stores of protein. Like the way it can, like chronic levels of inflammation are going to cause protein breakdown in the body when your body is essentially going into a state of stress from a perceived, like danger, perceived, stressor in general. You enter a state of just like chronic inflammation, and basically your body starts rapidly metabolizing energy from carbohydrate, fat, and protein stores notably, which is something you don't really want to dip into and can otherwise be problematic in a catabolic context. And this is where the catabolic nature of cortisol comes from to begin with. So the first ingredient in the product is Emodin. This is a potent 11-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type 1 inhibitor. And the reason I actually found this ingredient not on my own, I found it through the Guerrilla Chemist. He came up with, I don't know if he's the first one to find it. I've heard it on a couple podcasts. I saw him come out with a product with it in it, and I've tried it and I've had some other people test it, and it works pretty well. So this was a ingredient I definitely wanted to include because it's something that actually inhibits the formation of cortisol itself. It's not something that just like causes anti-stress or anti-anxiety through indirect mechanisms. It's something that literally goes into like the literal fucking fat cells and prevents the creation of cortisol. So Emodin, it is an 11-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type 1 inhibitor. Like I mentioned, it regulates adipocyte function in vitro and exhibits anti-diabetic effect in mice. This is one of the first rodent studies that was notable. It sort of reinforced its mechanism of action and in terms of it actually reducing cortisol rather than just being like a anti-stress, calm you down, adaptogen that just like makes you feel a little bit more smoothed out. This thing actually works by inhibiting the creation of cortisol itself, and it's very potent at that. Basically, this study found that Emodin improves the inactive glucocorticoid-induced adipose tissue dysfunction by selective inhibition on 11-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type 1 in adipocyte in vitro and improves glycemic control in mice. So why this is important being a selective inhibitor the way it is because there is more than one type of 11-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type in the body. There is type 1 and type 2. So type 1 is highly expressed in key metabolic tissues, including adipose tissue in the central nervous system, whereas type 2, the one that Emodin does not target, is expressed in aldosterone selective tissues, including kidneys, liver, lungs, colon, salivary glands, neurons, and placenta. So this is basically more interaction with the mineralocorticoid receptor, whereas 11-beta, so fucking hard to say every time, 11-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type 1 is the one that we are more concerned with because this is actual activation or inhibiting the downstream cascade that lead to the agonism of glucocorticoid receptors. So if we can prevent as much of that interaction in somebody who's otherwise redlining themselves above and beyond where they should be with GR interaction, we can get that kind of anti-catabolic action, and we can prevent some of the excessive preventing you from shifting your body into a state of rest and digest. Just like some of the problems that come along with the way people are self-inducing this state of chronic stress in their bodies and cranking their fucking adrenals. This is something that can actually step in and prevent you from fucking yourself as bad. So Emodin seems to have a lot of promise, and in practical application, I've guinea pigged it on myself as well as several individuals, and it actually makes a pretty significant difference, especially in getting rid of like stubborn fat. It seems to actually make a significant difference, which is actually really interesting. I was more concerned with the, like adrenal cranking that everyone is inducing upon themselves, the rest and digest state that no one can really get into as easily now with this fucking constantly redlining themselves, as well as the catabolic action of, excessive cortisol production in a perpetual state essentially. So as far as any other studies on it, like there's honestly very limited data on it. It's more like one of these experimental chemicals that has sort of data extrapolated to reinforce its actions, but it does seem to work in humans. And there's another study that was very promising that led to kind of the idea that this could be a novel cortisol blocking supplement in your everyday life, or at least when warranted, when you are otherwise pushing yourself a bit too hard. So this study found Emodin, a natural product, selectively inhibits 11-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type 1 and ameliorates metabolic disorder in diet-induced obese mice. So the conclusions were this study demonstrated a new role for Emodin as a potent selective inhibitor of 11-beta HSD1 and its benefit, which is, I've already said that enough times, I'm just going to abbreviate it from now on, and its beneficial effects on metabolic disorders in mice. So this highlights the potential value of analogs of Emodin as a new class of compounds for the treatment of metabolic syndrome or type 2 diabetes. So this actually showed it was able to reverse prednisone-induced insulin resistance in mice, which is something that is, pretty fucking impressive, to be honest, because that's something that is otherwise a very potent corticosteroid that would otherwise cause some issues that you've seen. I'm sure you can just look up the fucking side effects of prednisone and you'll see for yourself. Now, one of the main things to note too is how it was able to ameliorate, notice how it said ameliorate metabolic disorder. So this is something that can be exacerbated by lifestyle, as well as through diet, as well as through drug use, as well as through a myriad of things. But a lot of people on the planet are insulin resistant nowadays and are essentially self-inducing the state of metabolic syndrome. A lot of people are getting to the point where they are just, their entire endocrine system is like fucked with because they're exceeding the amount of, like, basically when you start producing too much stress hormone, you're actually pulling away from your ability to synthesize endogenous androgens and other metabolite hormones like neurosteroids and stuff that you would otherwise need to have a high functioning quality of life. And this is where you can actually lead to some people having low T naturally, low androgens, low neurosteroids, low metabolite hormones that otherwise have downstream cascades that dictate many important physiologic functions in the body, make you feel good, make you build muscle, make you burn fat, make you get to sleep properly, make you not stressed out and anxious as fuck, because your body is redlining trying to produce these fucking glucocorticoids the entire time. So basically by manually intervening in that enzymatic process, we can kind of get in front of the issue a little bit in people that, need to get some sort of intervention in that capacity, because some people are going to continue this lifestyle, unfortunately, or, otherwise need time to kind of like reorganize their lives and fix their lifestyle practices. And this is where Emodin can kind of like cut in the middle and like instantly improve that area that is otherwise pulling away from other hormone production in the body and other cascades and interactions that are going to become severely neglected if your body is constantly in a state of just like cranking out glucocorticoids. So the next thing, these are some more commonly known ingredients, like ashwagandha is the next one, which is something that has found that it can substantially reduce cortisol levels relative to placebo. So this is one of the best anti-stress adaptogens probably out there. And it's found that it can have interesting benefits in terms of its interaction with endocrine parameters. It seems to increase testosterone production to some extent. It's found it can improve glucose metabolism. It can also have a enhanced strength performance, but most notably, it's the effect that it has on cortisol as well as anti-stress. Like for me, the main thing I knew it for personally, and why I even looked at this, was its effect on stress and anxiety. This is one of the most well-known compounds for kind of like, easing the mind, smoothing it out, getting chilled out, and helping to get to sleep. And this is why it's in Gorilla Dream as well, but as well in a cortisol blocking product, it makes a lot of sense to put in it. And it has a lot of efficacy in a clinical setting for anti-stress, anti-anxiety. And when you actually dig into it, it does in fact lower cortisol levels to a significant enough degree for it to be worth adding into the product, in my opinion. So the next ingredient is phosphatidylserine, which is an amino acid derivative that is fat soluble and found in high amounts in the brain, and otherwise is going to be something that you're probably not going to get enough of through your diet to yield the kind of anti-stress, anti-cortisol effects that it may otherwise provide. And this is something that over the years, enough, anecdotal reports and enough data has come out kind of reinforcing its efficacy that I started to take it seriously in a cortisol context. And again, this isn't like the most important thing in the world. This is more for people who actually have anxiety, have stress in their lives, want to actually intervene in some capacity, and want supplementation to kind of aid them in their journey to do so above and beyond the overhauling their lifestyle, which some people just won't do, or some people can only like partially do and may need that supplemental boost to get a potent additive effect that is anti-catabolic, anti-cortisol. So this study in particular, the influence of phosphatidylserine supplementation on mood and heart rate when faced with an acute stressor, is the main one to resort to refer to, in my opinion. Basically, they found that it blunted the release of cortisol in response to exercise stress and an improved mood. Again, there's not a ton of data backing some of these chemicals and backing some of these adaptogens and whatnot, but of the data we have, it seems like they do each have an additive effect on top of one another, and in conjunction with one another, they have a very potent anti-cortisol, stress component that seems to, in practical application, I felt it was worth bundling into a full product. So it's not like this is not something that is going to like literally tangibly pack on like 5 pounds of muscle in a certain amount of time. And frankly, this isn't even me advertising for a muscle growth component that may just be a like byproduct result, as in terms of somebody who is way too stressed out and isn't able to pack on muscle the way they should be if they otherwise had their lifestyle, stimulant intake, dietary interventions completely on point. So just keep that in mind, because this is me elaborating on where it may have the most application rather than saying that everyone's going to benefit from this, because frankly, a lot of people are not going to really need this. This is more for the hyper stressed individual, the hyper anxious individual, the person who can't sleep, the person who needs this, rather than every single person. Now, one thing before I continue to the next ingredient is circling back to Emodin, something that definitely needs to be noted. I don't know if you guys saw my Instagram a while ago, but I basically was talking about how I need, I like made a joke. It was like, the texts I send to like people in Gorilla Mind or something. And it was like me talking to my business partners or people in the company too. And basically we were testing out the cortisol blocker, and it was basically like, I need you guys to try this and let me know if you shit yourself, because it was like something I had also tried. And the reason is Emodin has a very potent laxative effect. So this is something that has been used in traditional Chinese medicine to treat digestive issues. So this is something that definitely needs to be taken note of, because you may otherwise not respond well to it. And if all of a sudden you have brutal diarrhea and you don't know why, it's probably the Emodin. So this is where I actually wish I broke down the product further in the supplement facts to a 1 capsule dosage rather than 2. And I would highly recommend, when you're starting, like actually only start with 1 a day to evaluate tolerance and see how your digestion handles it. Because 250 milligrams of Emodin is actually a decent amount and can still have these side effects for some individuals. So you can taper up, but start at 1 and taper up accordingly based on your digestive response as well as based on your stress response. Don't just go based on the supplement suggested use. Like here it says first time users should begin with 1 capsule to evaluate tolerance. Like I really wish I went back and like really like bolded it or made it super obvious, because it can be very digestively upsetting for some individuals. So start at 1. Have it at a time that actually makes sense, not right in the morning when you actually need your cortisol response. Don't blunt it right when you wake up. Use it later in the day. Use it after your workout is done, when you actually need to get into rest and digest. I don't know why a lot of cortisol products don't really advise like when to time it, but you don't want to do it before working out, right when you wake up. You don't want to blunt the like fight or flight response you need to go hit the weights hard, or to wake up in the morning and get out of bed and get, like attack the day. You want to do it later in the day or after your workout, when you're trying to shift into rest and digest parasympathetic state and get to bed, or, like chill out and get your mind like calm and get out of that red line mode. So that is when you'd want to test it out. Start with 1, taper up accordingly from there, but just be aware that if you get digestive distress, it is the Emodin, and it's very expected for a lot of people. So just be aware of that. The next ingredient is Panax ginseng. So this is commonly referred to as true ginseng, and basically it is often used, I guess, most commonly for mood regulation as well as your immune system. It actually has some pretty distinct cognitive benefits as well, sort of like in a nootropic context. But for this one, the main reason we're using it is its anti-stress component. And the study that I would defer to for kind of elaborating on how it works exactly, or the mechanism of action, anti-stress effects of ginseng via downregulation of tyrosine hydroxylase and dopamine beta hydroxylase, gene expression and immobilization stress rats and PC12 cells. So basically they talk about catecholamines and how basically long-term stress leads to the induction of catecholamine biosynthetic enzymes such as tyrosine hydroxylase and dopamine beta hydroxylase, and a bunch of stuff you don't really need to know. But basically, it's like a fancy way of talking about the redlining yourself, the catecholamines, the, you know, ridiculous amount of stimulants leading to this kind of like state of hypersympathetic drive on a constant basis, and how ginseng can actually intervene in that. So what they found here was immobilization stress induced catecholamine biosynthetic enzymes gene expression, while ginseng appear to restore homeostasis via the suppression of TH and DBH gene expression. So basically they found that ginseng has a anti-stress action produced by suppressing this gene expression that is caused by the induction of catecholamine biosynthetic enzymes. So if that was not even fucking English, let me circle back. So long-term stress leads to the induction of these catecholamines. And basically what ginseng does is it comes in and it gets you back to homeostasis, or restores it via suppressing this gene expression. So when you were otherwise redlined, ginseng can come in and kind of downregulate it and bring it to homeostasis. So this is where it can come into play and have a very potent anti-stress capabilities in that regard. The next ingredient is Ginkgo Biloba, and this is often known as its nootropic benefits and an acetylcholinesterase inhibition capacity. It is used mainly for boosting cognitive function, but it also has a pretty notable effect on stress as well. So this is reduction of rise in blood pressure and cortisol released during stress by Ginkgo Biloba extract in healthy volunteers. Standardized extract of Ginkgo Biloba was found to not only improve memory and aging associated cognitive deficits, but also to exert beneficial effects on mood. And then the study provides evidence that Ginkgo basically has an inhibitory action on blood pressure and may influence cortisol release in response to some stress stimuli. So otherwise, when a stressor introduces itself and you would otherwise have this over-aggressive fight or flight response, Ginkgo Biloba can kind of come in and help attenuate that and not have you freak out as much or have your body go into redline mode as much. So otherwise, calming your body down, getting into rest and digest, getting into the state that you actually need to relax and not be in a state of muscle wasting or, you know, extreme levels of stress, and basically just calming your body down. So the next ingredients are L-Theanine. So this is something I've talked about for its calming and relaxing effects many times. It's in Gorilla Mind Smooth. It's a very potent anti-stress compound, prevents a heightened level of mental clarity, helps you calm down, get to sleep. It kind of mitigates the overactivity of excitable neurotransmitters in the brain. It kind of also helps curb the anxiety caused by caffeine. And one of the most potent nootropic stacks, or I guess most popular as well, is L-Theanine stacked with caffeine. So you can obviously see where L-Theanine would come into play with people who are, you know, addicted to coffee or caffeine. We have this cortisol blocking supplement. Obviously L-Theanine is a no-brainer addition to add on to that. Stacking caffeine with L-Theanine has actually been proven clinically to help you get to sleep and smooth out the jitters. So somebody that would otherwise have problems getting to sleep because they're a slow metabolizer of caffeine, or they otherwise just take way too much, or they took it at a stupid time or whatever, L-Theanine can be stacked on top to not only help you not freak out too much when you're on too much caffeine or have a poor response to it, smooth out the jitters, but it helps you actually get to sleep after having too many stimulants in the day. So that is why L-Theanine is excellent above and beyond its ability to improve memory and attention too. One of the most notable studies I often refer to is a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study on 91 people with minor brain damage. A combination of L-Theanine and green tea extract improved memory, attention span, and alertness during a memory test. It also has improved verbal fluency and executive function. Randomized controlled trial on 30 healthy adults. They were given 200 milligrams of L-Theanine. Verbal fluency and executive function scores improved after using it. Stress levels also went down, notably. The main reason it's in here. Sleep quality also increased after L-Theanine administration. Improves reaction time, and it also even has a neuroprotective effect. The last ingredient is bioperine, black pepper fruit extract, and the reason it is in here is it's a very effective CYP3A4 and P glycoprotein inhibitor, and this can help prevent the breakdown of some of the ingredients in the product and help kind of enhance its bioavailability. So Emodin in particular has a very poor absorption, and when you stack it with bioperine, it can enhance its bioavailability and prevent it from being broken down as easily, which then potentiates its action and makes it an actual viable, like orally ingestible supplement. So that is the breakdown of the formula. As far as who would benefit from this, it's basically, you know, like anybody who is, like it kind of depends on your situation. Like, are you somebody who abuses stimulants? Do you get poor sleep? Are you, do you have poor glucose control and you're developing insulin resistance? It kind of depends on you. Like for me, this is something I would introduce in an acute setting to kind of intervene in a lifestyle that may otherwise like not be able to be optimized, or like it's sort of like a band-aid approach at the end of the day. But a lot of people aren't going to fix and do everything 100% on point, and this is where the supplementation can kind of come into play, as well as for individuals who are dieting down aggressively, especially naturals who otherwise are cranking their cortisol up or are depleting their body of endogenous androgens that they otherwise need to maintain muscle. And it has this vicious circle effect where they have muscle protein breakdown, more stress, shittier sleep, you know, down regulation of their HPTA, and then they have less androgens, less muscle retention, more stress, blah, blah, blah. Like, especially for naturals, this is something that makes a lot more sense than somebody who is literally antagonizing GR receptors through their use of exogenous synthetic anabolics. For a natural, this makes a lot more sense, or for somebody who's abusing stimulants or whatever, or has poor sleep, intervening with something like this can actually be helpful. But again, at the end of the day, this is a lifestyle-induced problem that you bring onto yourself. So most people aren't able to completely optimize their lifestyle though. Like most people are still going to abuse stimulants. Most people are still going to sleep here and there for 5 or 6 hours instead of the 8. Some people aren't going to get exposure to light in the morning, follow their circadian rhythm, have a perfect micronutrient dense diet, and blah, blah, blah. You know, follow a perfect schedule of, you know, going to the gym at the perfect time of day when their catecholamines are like spiked and blah, blah, blah. So if you want to intervene with something like this, it's kind of like on a case-by-case basis based upon your own individual stress levels. But I would just, you know, like hopefully this helps break down where it makes sense and why you might want to use it, rather than saying like, oh yeah, cortisol's bad for fat loss, bad for muscle growth, so you need to use this. It's like, no. That is not the case whatsoever. This is more for the hyper-stressed individual or somebody who can't get to sleep, or somebody who otherwise is taxing their adrenals to like an amount that otherwise is not sustainable, I guess, would be the best way to put it. So this is going to be up to your discretion if you would benefit from it. It is not something that is going to be for everyone. So this is something I keep on deck for like intermittent use when needed, but I try to have my lifestyle on point enough where like I don't need to use this at all. It just gets introduced here and there when I like really fall off the wagon or whatever it's called. When I fall off my routine for like a few days and I like really fuck up and I like need to kind of like get back to homeostasis, get back on the horse or whatever it's called, and then go back to not using it again. So that is the way I use it personally, and I would recommend you using it to kind of like intervene when you like fuck up, or you are like hyper stressed or hyper, you know, sympathetic drive driven and otherwise need to fix it and get back to normal. So anyways, it's going to be available on the site now if you want to check it out, gorillamind.com. You can save another 10% with the coupon code DC10. Anything else I am associated with is in the video description below. Thank you guys for the support of the brand and everything, and it's the growth is, you know, exceptional, and it's I'm very much appreciative of it, and I'm glad you guys are digging the formulas. Like I put a lot of work into this stuff. And you can see, like, even in the formulas, if you go look at other cortisol blocking supplements or any other supplement I put out, like, you can tell this shit is expensive to make. Like, most people would put in just like one of these ingredients at a high dose, not all of them together. Like, this product in particular is one of the most expensive ones I've ever created. So if you're going to use a cortisol blocking supplement, this one is bar none the most potent in the entire industry. So check it out if you're interested. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.